Hello everyone. We are recording SaugaTalks today, and this is Irene, and I'm extremely privileged, yes, two well-hydrated guests today with me. We're gonna talk about quantum computing, AI, people, empathy, love, and wherever this conversation will take us, because we start with technology, but I sense we quickly jump into human conversation altogether today here with me, Davor Pavuna. Davor, how are you?
Fine, thank you very much. I was just swimming in the Geneva Lake, and it's kind of freezing glacial water in a hot and beautiful ambience. I'm ready for you guys.
And we feel the energy. We feel the
Oh,
beautiful
I'm just a
refreshing.
Homo sapiens. Tonight, I'm perfect Homo sapiens.
That's what we need here on the show. And Imtiaz Adam is here with me. Imtiaz, how are you?
Great to see you. And from London, I've got my tea here because we're getting a bit autumnal here. So hope you don't mind me having my cup of tea as we speak.
Fantastic.
Great.
Gentlemen, you both been on SaugaTalks before, I think more than once, and I know what you do and what you say resonates with the audiences because we're onto some hot topics to discuss today. We're going to talk about complex concepts, but in very simple terms. So quantum computing and AI, are they better together? Are they worse? What are the problems and what are the wonderful opportunities ahead? So Davor, your opening statement, how do you see the world evolving as we
Well, I'll be very blunt with both of you and everybody in the audience. I see the world has a basically moral issue because, as you both know, we don't have a moral principle built into the progress of science and technology. It's not I who said it. Everybody knows that. So our moral judgment comes afterwards. We develop something, maybe even some monstrum in biogenetics, for example, and then we just say, are we going to allow for it or not? Okay, probably even COVID might be one of these kind of strange things that are happening because just people playing in the lab. And we had actually with the bomb, sort of like. So I'm a bit cautious as a human, as a just one of us, right, who swims and is analog Homo sapiens who is still here. I think I put first human values. And I profoundly love science, and I think my fame is in a way because there are not many people who really did quantum physics all their life, and I did, and I met all the people who were literally even founders like Heisenberg or wherever, Ginsburg, and I know them, and so I want to share this profoundly with you. What I see and how do I feel right now with all these options that we'll hear in the moment. So I think I'll stop here and I'll defend what I say, human culture, human civilization, and human values. But I will certainly insist on quantum physics, quantum computing, and how I see artificial intelligence with my total respect.
So just jumping in there, I believe, look, the reality is we'll never know until we actually get there. And often the pathway that people believe or the trajectory that we think that technology is going to go plays out in a different way. And so, like I said, in the 2020s, if you'd gone back 4 decades ago, and even the early 90s, the movies, the science fiction writers envisaged that we'd be in flying cars with robots all around us in the streets, perhaps traveling back and forth to Mars or whatever. And in reality, our real advanced technology is this, right? Mobile phone. This is where it really happens. This is what's driving the big data and the AI, right? And we've had these around for a while now. So there's always a reality which kind of deviates from what we perhaps envisage at the time. But moving back a step, I believe we do have to go beyond the von Neumann architecture. It's served us well for many decades, but it's not really the solution for the era of big data and AI. And it has problems with known as the memory bottleneck, and we're relied on caching as solutions, etc. But we're like putting patches of plasters over cracks in the walls, and those cracks are getting bigger and bigger. Therefore, for more advanced computing and capabilities that we're going to have to need with AI, and if we're to use AI, even in very good ways in healthcare, etc., and fighting cyber crime and things of that nature, huge big data plays, advancing our applications of AI machine learning into more and more astrophysics. We're already seeing machine learning or deep learning technology having a big role in helping identify Earth-like planets or habitable planets around the universe that a few years ago wasn't possible. And so it means we need more and more advanced computing architectures, which means going towards things like neuromorphic computing, which means going towards things like quantum computing to deliver those capabilities. Now, could you say that there is an ethics gap in certain areas? Well, certainly, I believe when we look at what's going on with the whistleblowing on Facebook, etc., that there is a role for guidelines and ethics and standards across AI, from the data curation perspective to the end production perspective. And of course, you always get into questions of how you enforce it, but certainly there are roles there. And the sooner we do that, the better we get foundations for the future.
Can I just redefine the notions we are discussing for those in the audience who are lesser experts? I apologize, please correct me if I'm not saying exactly the definitions the way you would like it to see it, but I'll try to make it my simplest possible definitions. When you look around, whoever is watching us, when you look around, you look at your hand, you look at your computer or phone, this is kind of what we have all brainwashed into. It's called a local reality. And good old classical physics is basically putting all the parameters or local reality. The quantum physics, first of all, is non-local, fundamentally non-local. I mean, essence of quantum physics, it's no-local, meaning you can have what is called entanglement of two electrons, each one at the other part of the universe. It's instantaneous. So you have a lot of strange effects, and basically it's non-local. Quantum computing, the simplest version, without going into models that we cannot discuss here now, the essence is it's 1 billion times faster than anything you can possibly use now. I repeat, 1 billion times, actually even more. So you have an entity that's so fast that basically all your passwords currently fall to pieces. Well, I know for your iPhone, that's no big deal, or my iPhone, but I mean, when you have a kind of national health database or insurance data or something, then it's pretty tricky. Now, my definition, please correct me, my definition, what I learned about artificial intelligence is, artificial intelligence, strictly speaking, is when a machine or a robot writes a code. I repeat, when a robot or intelligence that we created writes a new intelligence. That is a little bit rigid, but usually strict. Please correct that, because this is important for our discussions. Most people use artificial intelligence loosely already. Oh, yeah, it's kind of intelligence. It's basically kind of automation become, computerized, and then it's faster and whatever. I use it in a more rigid and strict terms, but I would like you to be more precise on that, not because of me. I think it's fair to the audience.
Imtiaz, please, shed some light. Yes, wonderful,
yeah.
wonderful.
What is your definition of artificial intelligence now?
So we have different types of AI. We have narrow AI. Okay. Narrow AI is what we have today. And that is, it's good at doing one individual task. But unlike the human brain, it's unable to multitask. So even the most powerful deep neural networks, they suffer from catastrophic memory loss. When you train them to do a second task, they forget how to do the first one. There are attempts and methods to try and get around that with partitioning type approaches, etc. But then you're limiting perhaps part of the networking capacity to learn more and more things going forwards. So there are hybrid AI techniques like neurosymbolic AI and other approaches, perhaps that have been fusing symbolic logic with deep neural networks to see if that might provide some way around that. Professor Geoffrey Hinton, who is a big proponent of deep neural networks and backpropagation, says we'd have to go beyond backpropagation maybe to solve for that. And I would agree with that view. But backpropagation took a long, long time. His seminal paper in 1986, and that was published in Nature, has been a backbone of a lot of the deep neural networks and deep reinforcement learning today. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight to go beyond that. We are starting to slowly enter an era of broad AI, whereby we don't get to the level of artificial general intelligence. AGI is the ability to generalize in a way that a human brain can multitask and do multiple different tasks. And that is, if you like, a holy grail of AI, an ambition. It remains an ambition. There are different views on when it may occur. The majority of research scientists in AI say potentially the late 2040s rather. Some say 2100, the end of the decade, and some say never. And then the type of AI that you described, Davor.
Allow me to intervene with one question, because one of the main a kind of hype statements came from Kurzweil book. For those who don't know, Ray Kurzweil is a very intelligent person. He was one of the bosses in Google. He wrote way back in 2005, which he called basically Singularity. And a lot of people who are kind of in the broader sense don't know about other aspects. They call it Singularity. Basically, Singularity is usually defined when the robots on average, or artificial intelligence scientists on average, become more intelligent than humans. And originally, that Singularity Kurzweil has foreseen for 2031 or so, and a lot of hype went around that. Now he shifted about to 2045, and as you obviously imply, top experts really doesn't look at it like that. Please, could you comment?
So what you've described is known as superintelligence. That was the bit I was coming on to. So superintelligence is the next level, which is where machines actually become smarter than humans and start replicating themselves or human capabilities, and no one knows. I mean, AGI is expected sometime. What I say expected, there's a view that might happen by the late 2040s. But superintelligence, the view is maybe at the earliest decade, the end of this century. So what's Ray Kurzweil?
I profoundly apologize to you because I respect everything you say. But my experience, because I'm somewhat physically older, so to speak, is that in my lifetime, the military usually surprised me. You were always right on average, but some strategic military or some nasty power would finance something, and something would happen in some odd lab before, and that's still a danger in these areas, because both quantum computing and artificial intelligence, if used by some lunatic like in James Bond films, well, it's still dangerous. You're right on average. I agree with you in mean field model, but there are lunatics right now on the planet. I guarantee you.
Should we worry? Yeah, should we worry right now, not in 10 years?
We should. I'm definitely certain what we should, but I want to hear the serious issue.
Yeah, so I believe that the danger is not going to be imminent danger from AGI superintelligence, and I fear that actually distracts from the real danger. So even if you look at the military, for example, again, if you look to the science fiction writers in the 70s and 80s, we were being promised space travel, space wars, Star Wars, all kinds of things, the Star Wars anti-missile program under President Ronald Reagan, etc. None of these things happened. They didn't happen. And the problem is this hyped up fear of Terminator machines and Skynet results in people getting very anxious and policymakers getting distracted from dealing with the real dangers of AI. Because the real dangers of AI, including those coming from quantum computing and the speeded up capabilities, are a mixture of cyber warfare, the ability to collapse the entire infrastructure of a country, whether it's the power systems, the healthcare systems, bringing down all the banks, etc.
Is it true if I install quantum resistant cryptography? Could this is a key question, at least for me, because we even know we have had the interview, we have the companies, we have even patent for quantum resistant cryptography. So even quantum computing cannot penetrate your system. Now, if you use your artificial sophisticated kind of system, could it still penetrate even if you have quantum resistant cryptography?
So there's research out there, and you'll be familiar with it, coming from quantum physics.
Sure.
That is talking about using quantum inspired methods for quantum encryption, which is meant to be non-hackable because it's truly random. Because the argument is, without quantum physics, you can't get to true randomness. So if it's truly random, if you can generate truly random cryptography, then the argument is that it can't be hacked, right? Because it's pure randomness. So, but we're in the very early stages of that, as you know.
Sorry. Yes and no, because we have to help the listeners. Actually, in Switzerland, we have a company, we even have a patent on totally quantum resistance cryptography, and exactly recognized even by United Nations. So that level exists. I'm not saying it's a final level, because I respect everything you say, no question. But so I'm totally with you. So it will all progress. But actually, as you correctly say, we have science and technology advancing, and basically what you are saying, and I agree with you, all the other institutions are behind. Yeah. The legal systems are nowhere.
Completely. So the other danger with this is disinformation, and we're already seeing that. We're seeing the threats to democracy. We're seeing the threats to science and technology itself, ironically, coming from social media, where very simple AI, not advanced AI, bots, automation techniques, are feeding things that are completely non-scientifically true. And that is creating huge fear and paranoia, but also it can nicely generate a lot of company profits, because then you can push a lot of marketing and advertising into those channels, knowing that you're going to get huge viewers, etc. So ironically, at a time when science and technology is more advanced and human society should be more enlightened, it seems like part of our society is going more into the dark ages and away from an educational base or a scientific base, which is highly regrettable and unfortunate. So absolutely, there is a need to look at, you see, the problem, as you point out, Davor, is that our politicians, as well as our legal system, etc., and indeed many of our business leaders, don't understand AI. They didn't really understand a lot of science.
Oh, no. Sorry, not just AI. They don't understand anything in technology.
Right.
Absolutely nothing they understand, frankly. I mean, they don't know quantum physics, forget it. They don't understand even basic physics. No. They are fundamentally ignorant to the level that I won't even mention here. I'm ashamed of this. I don't even call them humans. I'm sorry. They don't deserve to be called humans. Sorry.
But the unfortunate thing is that this technology is coming. It's moving fast. It's actually moving elections. It can influence an election result. It can influence a referendum. It can impact cyber warfare, because a lot of the current and future warfare is going to be increasingly in the cyberspace rather, not necessarily physical, but it can still have tragic consequences.
We invited you a couple of years back to our physics department, the director of the Financial Crisis Center in Zurich. Everybody knows that Switzerland is financially very sophisticated and country full of banking. And that gentleman is, of course, a physicist. He gave a full talk on basically Wall Street and banking and everything that you know is going on. I'm talking about money, finances, real finances and investments. And at the end of the talk, I asked you a question. So everything you say shows that politicians and bankers do not tell you the truth and do not tell us the truth. And then he stopped for 3 seconds and said, yes. So there is a lot of media and bluffing maneuvering, even what we call financial dynamics. And this is without all the rest. Even if you put just in, let's say, everyday Google, you put something. If I want a Gibson guitar, or Les Paul Gibson guitar. Next day, they offer me already 3. And these are the simplest examples. So the question is, at what point do we still have a control of our internet, artificial intelligence, without quantum computing when it comes? And we do not, because so much of your artificial intelligence is already there.
Yeah, so if we take a step back, look, I don't want to say that every politician is evil. I don't.
I never said they're evil. I said they're ignorant, and that's not my argument.
But I think what we do need is a generation to come through who do actually understand digital technology, and we need more interaction with the science community to try and create frameworks of widening the understanding of these powerful advanced technologies and how they can shape things. Because we can shape things either in a positive way, we can use these technologies to dramatically improve healthcare services, to reduce pollution out there, etc., to actually grow the economies and generate jobs, or we can use them in nefarious and negative ways to create warfare, cyber warfare, real warfare, etc. And the problem is that all of this is happening at a time where we're facing a lot of challenges as human society. We have just been emerging, fingers crossed, from a 18-month, 2-year period of challenges with the COVID situation and crisis, which is unprecedented for our modern era. You have to go way back to the Spanish flu for something similar. And we are also coming against the backdrop of climate change having more and more of an impact, where we're having this industrial era, chemical era, with the consequences of 8 billion people out there consuming plastics, consuming chemicals, destroying a lot of nature's resources in the oceans and on land. And it's forecast, if we continue with business as usual, in the 2040s, we hit that 1.5 C warming, and we're trying to limit climate change to 1.5 C. So it's interesting. The politicians are not saying they're going to stop climate change. They say they're going to limit it to 1.5C. But if we carry on everything as we do today, the forecast is we hit that by the 2040s, which will mean huge crop failures in Africa, more mass migrations, warfare, fights over resources, huge instabilities. So there are a lot of challenges that we're facing. And so we have to view technology as a way to get out of this mess, out of these challenges. But that means we need enlightened leadership to use these technologies in a positive way and to put a framework around that to actually move things forwards in a way that's beneficial for humanity.
Let's talk about some positives here, okay? What about some possibilities? Quantum computing in AI. Where are these life-saving, wonderful, human applications you see? Let's do some positive,
Well, young girls always ask me, can quantum computing with artificial intelligence find me the right partner for my life? Like
Here we go.
It's very nice. I mean, okay, it's a legitimate question. It's probably for Instagram or TikTok or whatever. So I usually don't know how to answer on that, except that I think we already have everything we need built in within us. And I know a lot of young women who can immediately see the young men and say, oh, this guy is for me, so to speak. So whether artificial intelligence will improve that, I don't know. But I agree with you that artificial intelligence may improve certain things in the healthcare. Also in the big data, as you said. I think that is quite clear. Quantum computing will not hurt in that area, to the best of my knowledge. It will be just faster. Quantum computer will be also more evasive to the privacy, but that is also, as you discussed, so I will not comment on that. Maybe you have some better examples.
Yeah, I would echo that and say drug discovery is a big area of potential for quantum computing, because you have more, according to the researchers in the space, you can create more potential molecular compounds than there are atoms out there, apparently. So it's a very huge number, depending on who you believe. And most of that search space is unknown to us, is completely unknown. So the speed of quantum computing, as Davor pointed out, is so exponentially faster that you'll be able to go through that search space much more effectively, much more quickly. So complex diseases like cancer and other complex ailments that currently often not treatable or the treatments are not that effective, we could actually start finding much better solutions there, and indeed personalized medicine, where we can find the compounds and link to our DNA structures to get personalized medicine where the side effects of the medicine are mitigated, but the upside benefits of the medicine are massively improved. So absolutely, there are huge benefits in drug discovery, personalized medicine, in terms of other areas of chemistry with new novel compounds. We could discover that alternatives to plastics, etc., enzymes that could go and eat the plastics in the ocean. Huge potential there. So absolutely, and indeed new super materials that we're going to need for more advanced computing, beyond graphene perhaps. So huge potential there. But again, these are things that are going to come in the future, because the differences between the research lab and real world production. In the lab, I think we find researchers find really exciting potential and breakthroughs, but then getting that implemented in the real world, there's a time lag, and then scaling it. So personally, I don't view that we would get commercial quantum computing until the 2030s. I know Google say they'll try and get it out by 2029. I know a company in China a few years ago said they'd do it by 2020 to personal computers, but they didn't. So we're still some time away. And also, when you take a step back and you look at the challenges we still have to solve to get to AGI, let alone super intelligence, a lot of things are going to have to happen. We're going to have to give causal reasoning capabilities to the current AI, machine learning or deep learning techniques, so they can understand causal inference, so they can understand common sense, which they don't. Even the most powerful deep neural networks, GPT-3 or Google Switch model, etc., they don't get common sense. That is obvious to us as humans. That's how you can still catch them out. That's why they still won't pass the Turing test.
I fully agree with you, but I have to challenge you on two topics, because otherwise Irene will not be happy, because we have to show our full potential, and I think you'll like it. I do share your view that it takes time, of course, to develop all these things. And as you already discussed, I will not reiterate. There are areas that will come sooner, there are areas that will come later. But there's one aspect which is very interesting to our listeners. Crudely speaking, Homo sapiens like myself, like biological human, like you or me or whoever, we are here according to the usual Darwinism. So after, whatever, 5 billion years of the Earth and whatever millions of years that we evolved here, and we have kind of all these biological systems, as you correctly say, we would like to develop certain drugs and things, but it has to be basically personalized. However, if doesn't matter when, but even in this century, emerge the entities that are dramatically more intelligent than we are. And let's face it, if we assume quantum computing with artificial intelligence, then it's not unforeseeable that in, say, 50 years, 100 years, or you name the scale, there are entities like kind of artificial robots or intelligent robots or whatever you want to call it, that's so superior to current humans that it looks like so to speak, science fiction, and then those entities have no need for Homo sapiens. This sounds like a scenario for a science fiction Hollywood movie, but actually a lot of people ask me on a daily basis. I'm profiting right now because from quantum physics, that should not necessarily happen. From artificial intelligence, particularly when you add very sophisticated robots, and it goes then double exponentially, as you know extremely well, this could happen because the entities which would emerge from advanced silicon and advanced programming artificial intelligence would not necessarily need these biological humans. I would love to hear your comment because we never discussed it, you and me.
What I did is I'd actually take a step back from that and say, look, before we even get there, we've got more imminent threats, which is that humans may have wiped ourselves out by then. And if we look at a statistic that's been given a few years ago, of all the mammals on Earth,
humans the most dangerous. And the amount of humans killed by humans, really,
Statistics, sorry. Of all the mammals on Earth, 96% are livestock and humans. Only 4% are wild mammals. We've done mass extinctions over the last few decades and indeed the last few centuries. So humans have been very good at wiping out biodiversity on this planet, which is now coming back as a threat back to ourselves. Right. So, and that's only going to accelerate going forwards. 4% of the mammals in this world are wild. Only 4%. Right. And we're going from 8 billion to 11 billion people by the end of this century in the projections, and we're wiping out lives in the ocean that we rely on to eat. We're destroying huge amounts of the world that's used for agriculture. On the current, let's just say we cancel all AI research and carry on with this business as usual trajectory. I'm afraid the high probability is there won't be many humans, if any, left a not too distant future. So it's a probably more plausible scenario that 50 years from now, rather than humans being wiped out by super intelligence, humans will have wiped ourselves out. And that is a genuine trajectory we're actually on, causing huge damage. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is that I don't believe that this journey to advanced AI is going to happen in isolation. When you were mentioning BCI, brain-computer interfaces, for example, and I'm talking about wireless ones rather than invasive that you drill into a skull, but wireless ones, especially when we get to 6G and beyond, are going to enable these brain-computer interfaces to work far better. And so maybe actually this super intelligence that we're referring to is actually going to be humans augmented with AI. Maybe that humans will become more advanced ourselves.
I'm very happy about what you're saying. No, but it's important that I provoke you, and I provoke myself. I don't take me wrong. I don't know myself. Can artificial intelligence love? Could two robots fall in love? They ask me. I mean, frankly, some people ask me that. I apologize for the question, but they ask me.
Yeah, the current model of AI, no. But with AGI and superintelligence, the view is that if AI has consciousness, if it's conscious...
Stop. Last year's Nobel Prize winner, our friend Roger Penrose, he said, one of the things he said, among others, was he's a brilliant guy, he said he doesn't think that artificial intelligence has consciousness, or in any case, the consciousness he thinks is maybe a non-mathematical entity. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying what he said, and he's a smart guy.
Models of AI are not conscious. We don't know if the arguments made by a number of researchers that AGI will be conscious. the reality is we're going to find these things when we get there.
Well, I was trained, I know a lot of things, but for me, love, empathy, togetherness, and consciousness are essence of my being. If you tell me that that's not essence of myself, okay. But with all, I had 100% in mathematics age 14. I was really good, but that doesn't make me human. I mean, I love it, but 100% in mathematics doesn't make you more human. So I don't know. I may be wrong, but I'm listening to you.
So the ability to be self-aware, we're going into philosophy and psychology.
I couldn't get married until age 35. No woman would want me. I was brilliant. But I was thinking I have to negotiate with woman. You are beautiful. I'm reasonably beautiful. You need a husband. I need a woman. Let's get married. You know what women did? They collapsed of laughter. Who is this idiot?
And they laughed, and they ran away.
They still laugh
right?
today. No, I mean, these are serious issues when you are mathematicoi.
Sure.
No,
offline after this session, I'll send you some links to some psychologists and indeed philosophers.
Please do.
That AGI will be conscious, and it'll be conscious because of the fact that it can think about itself and its place in the universe. So you can either have this world where, as you say, everything's mathematical and the machines are just cold and have purely mathematical driven. But if they don't have self-consciousness, are they really, do they really truly understand the world around them? Versus the version of AGI and superintelligence, which is that they are aware of themselves and the world around them and therefore conscious. And so that is, we'll only truly know when we get there in the future. I personally believe they will go towards consciousness. That's my own view, because when something's intelligent enough to reason and understand its world around it. And that's why we were talking about the importance of giving machines common sense, which they don't have right now. Right.
But this becomes part of the rational versus irrational discussion.
Humans are not always rational. We make emotive decisions that maybe if they were purely cold and calculated, we may not have taken.
Is that everything is evolving, including artificial intelligence, has a consciousness, okay? And therefore has a good question, what is going to be moral values of that entity?
Yeah, I believe it will be conscious. It isn't conscious today, but when we get to AGI and superintelligence, for it to be truly intelligent and understand its place in the universe and its consequences on the universe.
But this is very profound what you're saying, because you just stated, as some of my friends also say, that biological Homo sapiens is only an intermediate phase, and probably a very short intermediate phase.
Maybe
because these entities will then go beyond, and therefore in the universe there must be zillions, I repeat, zillions of ultra intelligent entities, because we are unbelievable reason. Even our science is only 3 or 4 centuries. No, but look, I have to provoke you.
I believe that is an entirely plausible construct.
Well, so do I, but I have to provoke you because we are here for the audience. We are not here for our ego.
They may well be civilizations that they're way more intelligent than us. There'll also be many that maybe have self-destroyed themselves when they discovered E = mc squared and destroyed themselves on nuclear warfare, right? So that we'll find out when we get there, but certainly I believe it's highly plausible.
Well, I apologize for that, but you see, science has power also not to wait until we get there. We try to understand a lot of things in advance, so it's fair that you and me agree or disagree. It doesn't really matter. We are really both honest to try to figure it out.
I'd be one to believe that there are mathematically, physics-wise, scientifically, very intelligent civilizations out there in this vast universe.
Well, why don't you accept that there are very civilized and very intelligent, even humans right now on the planet Earth? I can even tell you the books that exist. There are at least 3, if not 5,000 books written by the humans that are way off scale by the standards as you would call super intelligence. And nobody quotes those.
When did I say there weren't civilized humans?
Not you. I'm saying the media that you mentioned. Not you. With you, I agree. So, a lot of media ignore that. We have much bigger body of knowledge that you read in the present media that you mentioned.
Well, the problem, Davor, is that you have elements of our society, of which you are part of, that are highly educated, that are leading the cutting-edge research in science and technology. But unfortunately, we also have a failure of our education system, both in the OECD countries and indeed the developing world. Education is not fairly dispersed, let's be honest. there are huge variabilities in quality and indeed access to education in this world. So we have a scenario where we can have people working in the cutting edge research of quantum mechanics, AI, etc., like the two of us. And then we can have people on this planet today, right now, who are not even getting basic primary school education and being forced to go into child labor. So the hard reality is that there is huge variability in access to education and indeed quality of education as well. So unfortunately for the mass media, if you like, dumbing it down to the broadest audience, the broadest reach, thing is often where it goes. So rather than, if it was down to me as humankind, we would be looking at the skies at night and pontificating of how we can make this a better world and our place in the universe and how we might be able to get to those other places in the future. Because, let's even forget super intelligence and even climate change, etc. Let's even say we find a solution to climate change. As a physicist, as well as I do as an AI person, that sooner or later, one day, an asteroid's going to hit Earth, a large asteroid, probabilistically, one on the scale that hit the dinosaurs. What does that do to humans? So in that sense, we will probably have to look at moving beyond planet Earth, right? But that means more and more advanced science and technology capabilities.
To me, all the conversations, technology or people or something in between, comes to empathy.
It's about investment, isn't it? There's been a failure. Look, Davor is sitting in Switzerland, which has a strong education base, but there are many parts of this world, even in the US, for example, and in the UK, where there is a huge gap between what the top universities. I believe Davor attended Cambridge University. So you've got Cambridge, you've got Oxford, you've got and in the US you've got Harvard and Stanford, etc. But you also have large sections of the UK and US as examples who don't get any university education. And I think this is part of the challenge, that we need to scale investment into education all over the world. And I've just given the UK and US as two examples, but you've got the developing world as well, and other parts of this, emerging markets, etc., where we need to make sure that proper investment is occurring into into education. And it's no accident that regions such as Taiwan, Singapore, more recently China, where massive investment has occurred into science skills, into engineering skills, into research in science and technology, that those are economies that have been powering forwards fast. And again, we saw that with Japan, for example, in the 60s and 70s, a lot of investment that went into science and research, etc. And then the emergence of big, powerful Japanese engineering companies that became globally very capable and powerful. So there is this failure to view perhaps education and investment into science and technology skills, and indeed R&D, research and development, as something that ultimately will pay off for the economy, that will pay off for future generations, and actually give money back to the governments. Because once you get the future companies coming out of this and you've got the GDP growth, then of course tax revenues are going to come back because you've got successful companies paying tax revenue. Instead of just looking at 1 year forward or 3 years forward, we have to take a longer term horizon and say these investments that we're making, including into computer science, into physics, into mathematics, etc., is going to pay off heavily for decades.
Can we leave maybe with a couple of takeaways, okay, for audience to remember this wonderful, energetic talk? Imtiaz, takeaways, possibilities, challenges, how we're going to solve this? Mm-hmm.
Look, I mean, I'm not just talking about happiness. I'm talking about the fact that education and indeed investment into science and technology as a key way to getting us out of a lot of the challenges we're facing and going to continue to face, unless we get the next breakthroughs and we get them quickly. For example, green hydrogen and things of that nature. We can't, we want to carry on taking our holidays, flying, etc. We want to carry on enjoying our car journeys, etc. Well, if we want all these things, we need to move quickly towards things like electrification that can be backed by renewable energy at scale, green hydrogen economies of scale. All these challenges have components from physics too. So there is a need to fundamentally rebuild a lot of the infrastructure of our world, and it's expensive. If we take a step back and look at 5G, for example, there's a lot of hype around 5G, and you could say people like myself have talked about the capabilities of 5G. Yet in the world today, there certainly in Europe and the US, there aren't so many standalone 5G networks. Most of the 5G is occurring on piggybacking 4G infrastructure. And you're only going to get to the advanced capabilities of virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality, etc., and mass IoT, machine-to-machine communications, this era of robotics, etc., when you get more standalone 5G networks. That requires huge amounts of money and investment, which, again, is going to take time. So this is the example I'm giving, that it actually takes time to build the real-world infrastructure and capabilities for the advanced technologies to actually work. And so that's something we need to do. The other is to create frameworks where we get the industry bodies together to work under guidance with our leaders around the world, and, or at least in regions, and say, here is how we create standards for production AI. I'm leaving aside the research side, but production that you're putting into the real world. Here's how you test it. Here's how and create these guidelines would actually protect the data scientists, because the data scientist, he or she, is being asked to do things by the business team. And if they believe it's unethical, who have they got to go to? Because there's a vacuum. There's nowhere for them to say, with an accounting standard, if an accountant is being asked to tick off on something that is fraudulent, they can say this breaches this guideline. In data science and machine learning, there's nothing there to guide them. So creating these kind of standards, they will have to keep on evolving because the field is evolving rapidly, but at least putting these kind of frameworks into place. And again, a big push into areas like federated learning and differential privacy to at least start giving us the machine learning on the devices around us that doesn't snoop on us.
There were a couple of takeaways, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll just first confirm. Well, we agree on education, and I agree with you also. We'd like to give people at least minimum essential physics. It does help on the basic science, that we agree. We agree on basically personal medicine. I think that's how you formulate it, to use artificial intelligence and all these goodies for basically general personalization. I don't know, it wouldn't be just health and all that, but that, yes. Even organization of society, we can do much better. I'm dramatically concerned about safety, because we didn't touch on that, because that was not our talk today. That cyberspace is already, actually it's 30% is already crime, one way or the other. And I just heard it from the experts here in Switzerland and so on. And with quantum, it's going to be worse, even though there is a quantum resistive protection, and I know about it. But on the other hand, if you look at the two visions, we have to emphasize that, because we discussed that. One vision is a transhumanist. You didn't say it like that, but there is an agenda, okay? We put all the more technologies and actually minority maneuver that, because whether you like it or not, most of the resources of planet Earth are not in the hands of majority. It's not even my statement, you can check it. I can argue on that in a different program. So that minority, and to a large extent, let's call them billionaires. There are only about 5,000 of them, or maybe 6, doesn't really matter. Plus they're basically servants. They run the show, and that can be easily seen. Let's say it's just the COVID show. COVID last 18 months or 2 years. All the richest on the planet became roughly, companies in particular, 50% richer. Well, that's something we have to verify as well, and there are many other things. You didn't mention, for example, that in China, they integrate humans and brains with basically whatever, robots, artificial intelligence, whatever else. I couldn't check all that personally, even though I was there several times. That's also an interesting development we have to follow up, because it belongs to our topic. And last but not least, I'm not convinced, with my complete respect to everything you say, I'm not convinced yet that consciousness can be done in artificial intelligence. I'll listen and read everything you send me. I appreciate that. I'm not convinced about that. And when it comes to love and empathy, I, for the moment, still keep it as a, let's say, quality of what I called Homo sapiens humans, the way I am. But with due respect, I really appreciated your comments, and I will study them in depth. So I'm very grateful to you.
Wonderful.
So what I would quickly say is that, in theory, everything can be reverse engineered, right? That's the reality of our universe. So theoretically, you should.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if Paul McCartney wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning and comes up with yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away, I don't know why would I reverse that. And don't take me wrong. My main problems are not scientists and technologists. My main problems are my artistic friends. They argue that they don't believe machines will create the way we do, the kind of Shakespeare But I don't know. I will not argue about it today, but I don't know. But my artistic friends are really very vocal, much more vocal than technologists.
Well, we're starting to see machine learning moving to music and art already. So I don't know. We'll see. But I mean, we've seen artworks fell for large amounts of money from GANs, generated from GANs. So I don't know. We'll find out when we get as it develops.
No, but I'll give you one test which killed me almost, so to speak. I don't know whether you have children, because we didn't discuss that. But I have children that are grown up. When my kids were roughly teenagers, they came to me and said, "Dad, you're a smart guy. You're all around the planet," which of course I was. I said, "Look what the planet you created. You're nuts. You're total nuts." My kids were angry against me because brilliant guys like myself and my friends, and I can tell you all of them, I'm guilty. I am guilty we have this civilization the way you see it. Because we believed in all this crap that we are all now telling them. Because 40 years ago, we all believe, oh, more technology. No. Without love, empathy, moral code, an agreement will survive with humans as old-fashioned entities. This is going to go very badly in transhumanism mumbo-jumbo, Orwellian scenario. And this is my firm statement. I could be wrong, and I wish I'm wrong. And this is what
we'll leave this for next session here, Davor and Imtiaz.
I want to discuss lovely that because I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Sorry, I think again this risks obfuscating the whole discussion because, or the real risks. I believe the real risks with AI are more about mass surveillance and cybercrime. And we did actually talk about it because I raised that as the big threat of AI.
Gentlemen, thank you so very much. Enriching, lovely, dynamic. Let's get back together.
I thank you guys. You were brilliant. Thank you very much. I apologize for disagreeing with certain things, but it's normal.
That's what we're here for.
Yes, thank you.
This is very human, by the way.